So, it turns out that we have some serious news out of Syria today. The main command post of the Syrian military, the command center of the military forces who are fighting the civil war in Syria, as it's now been called by the international community, has been targeted and destroyed. The main command post for the Syrian forces who are trying to keep control in that country, which is rapidly spiraling out of control. We have over 10,000, 15,000 deaths now, which is insane. Like really, really high. This command post has been destroyed, and some of the main figures who are leading the military and the government have been taken out. It's clear that this could have only been accomplished by someone who had the highest insider security clearance. So this puts into question the whole war effort. This is a huge game changer. And you know, the Syrian citizens are questioning now whether this government has the ability to protect anybody. If it can't protect its highest officials and its highest generals, who can it protect? And how can it stay in power if it can't protect the location of such a thing? And it can't protect its highest officials and its closest advisors. How can they protect the president? There's a huge battle going on in Damascus right now, the capital of Syria. So let's take a look at some of the video clips of what's happening right now.
As news of the explosion spread, celebrations broke out in the outer suburbs of Damascus. These anti-government supporters praised the attack as a great success. With the capital in crisis, there was a huge military presence in the city centre. The highest profile victim was President Assad's brother-in-law, Asaf Shawkat, one of the most powerful members of the inner circle. Also killed, the defense minister, General Dawood Raja, and Hassan Turkmani, a vice president. State TV announced that the interior minister and intelligence chief were wounded, along with several other senior officials. It condemned the attack, calling it an act of terrorism and blaming foreign powers for encouraging the insurrection.
We have never wanted killing. We were able to defend ourselves against conspiracies, and today we are capable to do so.
Western capitals condemned the bombing, but said it proved the government needs to step down.
By ignoring those appeals by the international community, that the violence there has only gotten worse and the loss of lives has only increased, which tells us that this is a situation that is rapidly spinning out of control.
How rapidly is unclear. For the first time, state TV showed pictures of the army in combat in the capital. They said this was the Medan district, barely 2 miles from where the explosion took place. The state says these pictures show that its soldiers are cleaning up the problem. It doesn't look that way. It looks more as if the ground is crumbling under the feet of the Assad government.
So, and get a load of Leon Panetta there, hanging over the friggin' podium looking like a friggin' gangster, standing there talking about the situation spiraling out of control. Yeah, right, Mr. Panetta, Mr. Director of the CIA, don't act like you don't know exactly friggin' which one of your guys was responsible for bribing the official who, you know, let go of the security clearance to get that bombing taken care of. Don't act like the CIA had nothing to do with it. Please, tut, Mr. Panetta. Anyway, it's hard to see exactly what's going on here. There are so many factors in play, but I would definitely advise you to avoid taking the knee-jerk reaction of just assuming that everybody who the West is against must be something good. Like, it really made me fucking sick, and it still makes me sick to my stomach when I see so many people on YouTube who are commenting all this bullshit comments in support of Gaddafi, in support of Assad, and acting as if those people who are trying to take back their country from these dictators were some kind of like Western stool pigeons or something. Complete nonsense. Complete nonsense. These guys were our guys. Have you fucking forgot? These dictators, they were no friends of the Arab people. They weren't friends of the West exactly either, but they were useful idiots, as the term goes. They were useful for our foreign policy because they create instability in the region. They hijack the money from the state's coffers. They sow corruption. And these are the people who are implanting secular Western values into these Arab societies. Gaddafi, he was all into secular Western values and secularizing and modernizing. So you're going to tell me that he wasn't pro-Western? He had all his money in Swiss bank accounts, or wherever it was up there in Europe. He had all these investments in Europe and all this shit, and you're going to tell me he wasn't pro-Western? He was specifically very much against the Islamic tradition of women being, you know, something of a second-place citizen, quote-unquote. He was really against that. He was all for modernizing everything like that. But he was still a brutal despot who stole money from the coffers and of his country and usurped the power and created a fascist state, basically. This is the same thing that's happening in Syria. Not that the West is really much better at this point, but I'm saying these guys are no, these guys are no, what's the word I want? Angels. They're no choir boys. Gaddafi and Assad and Mubarak, these are no choir boys. These are people who operated torture and prison camps, who tortured people and kidnapped people and nameless, with nameless motherfuckers with ski masks on and in white vans, kidnapping their own citizens, repressing protest movements, repressing any and all attempts at social justice. And you want to say that these are so great people? Oh yes, these choir boy Gaddafi and Assad types. Where did this fucking come from? It just comes from the stupidity of a small-minded person who focuses and is lost 100% in the idea that America equals evil, that the West equals evil, just pure evil, and everything the West is against must be right for that reason. That's just a simplistic and bullshit view. And I see so many people on YouTube who claim to be like so enlightened political commentators who cop this perspective that just because the West is against somebody, that automatically makes them into some kind of fucking saint. That is wrong. So please try to avoid that perspective. Assad, Gaddafi, they're not saints. Are they the manic, Hitler type dictators that the West tries to make them out to be? I wouldn't go that far. I mean, yeah, they're dictators. They had absolute control over their country and their peoples. Were they Hitler style? Were they really like Hitler? No, not really. But they were not good people. Not really. They did fucked up shit. So watch out with all of that anti-American sentiment like you see on Russia Today and all this shit. Oh my God, Russia Today. It's just pure propaganda. So see, that's a point. Let me make a point right there. Look at how Russia today is responding to all this kind of stuff. Immediately they go and they attack America, attack America, attack America. Never hear them say anything about Russia or Chechnya. Attack America, attack America. Everything's always America's fault, America's fault. Oh, the CIA supporting the Syrian rebels and all this shit. Get out of here. Get out of here. You know, I'm not really sure that things would be better off with these kind of revolutions. I mean, it's better than having a dictator who you've had for the last 50 years who you're sick of fucking looking at, who hasn't really done anything for you or your family or for your people, but just kind of made a show of doing a couple of things and basically usurping all the money. This is what their job was. We had them in power, secularizing these countries, sucking out the money from these countries, and when we didn't want these people in power anymore, we turn against them. And now all of a sudden they're fucking like so great. Did you guys forget about like 20, 30 years ago when we put these people in power? This is crazy. Absolutely crazy commentary is going on a lot of YouTube channels when it comes to this shit. Just stupid. Anyway, so I think that it is a good thing that the people rise up and take over their country, take their country back. Anything is better than, like I said, having the same motherfucker who's been around for 50 years. Anything is better than that. Does that mean that I'm for NATO coming in and intervening and, you know, airstriking every foreign power who has some protest movements happening? No, I definitely don't believe that. I was very much pro-intervention in Libya for one reason and one reason only. Well, two reasons. I'll give you two reasons why I was pro-intervention in Libya and I'm not for intervention in Syria. Because right before we intervened in Libya, NATO intervened in Libya, Gaddafi was about to freaking murder thousands of people in Benghazi. He was about to subject the whole entire population of Benghazi to a nightmare. They would have gone through a freaking living nightmare if we didn't intervene in Libya. He would have gone through the streets in Benghazi, Gaddafi and his army. They were right outside the streets of Benghazi. They were shelling. They were right about to move into this major metropolitan city of 1 million or 2 million, 3 million people. I forget how many. They're about to move in and like go from house to house. They were literally going to go from house to house and pull out people, take them to jail, murder everything. They were gonna, all kind of fucked up shit was about to happen in Benghazi if we didn't step in and push them back. That's why I was saying that was good. That was a good usage of that kind of international force. We didn't go in right away. We didn't support the rebels right away. We dragged our feet. We didn't intervene until it was absolutely necessary, until they were begging for it, until the international community was swaying in the direction of being for it. And the citizens of Benghazi, and before you criticize me about this, go and look up the videos. The citizens of Benghazi themselves, look what they were saying right before Gaddafi attacked, and then you tell me that it was such a bad thing that NATO prevented these people from being slaughtered and taken prisoner. The other thing is that Syria is turning into a sectarian civil war. So putting NATO's troops on any side of a sectarian kind of conflict like this, where it's gradually turning into Sunnis versus Shiites, the Sunni majority in Syria is rising up against the Alawite minority, which is represented by Bashar al-Assad, the president. He's an Alawite, which is a minority in Syria, which is a Shiite minority, and it's a very, very small percentage of these people are Alawites. So I think that the sectarian civil war nature of it means that it's just got to resolve itself. No matter how bloody and nasty it is, you know, the people are divided right in half. I didn't see it as the same with Libya. With Libya, it seemed like the majority of people were on the side of the rebels. Most of the stuff that I read seemed to indicate that the people who are pro-Gaddafi were being paid or being forced at gunpoint to go to these rallies. I mean, I like Gaddafi as a person. I think he's a cool guy. I think that he had a lot of knowledge. I also think he's friggin' batshit crazy. But I think he's an interesting character. I don't think he should have been killed the way he should have and gone out like that. But in the same sense, even though he's an interesting character, what he was doing was wrong. Likewise, what Assad is doing is wrong. If Obama was doing the kind of things that Assad is doing in America, especially if Obama was representative of some minority, say it was Mitt Romney or somebody, and the country was split in such a way that the Mormons had power over all of us. They were given all the better jobs, corporations, etc. And Mitt Romney was the president. And he'd been the president for 30 years. And then he started to do all these atrocities to Americans. What do you think that people would react? And pretend for a second that we were still all Christians. How do you think that people would react to that? They'd be friggin' livid. So what gives you 108 Morris 108 for one example, or some of these other idiots on YouTube? What gives you the right to comment and say that those rebels in Syria are terrorists? What gives you the right to say that? Ugh. Anyway, I hope you didn't mind my long rambling spiel about Syria. That about sums it up. Thank you.